G'day traders, we're going to wrap up of Tuesday the 24th of April. So on the daily chart here, this green candle, this is the particular that we're going to be looking at. So again, starting this market, this day's market, you got to believe, there's sellers around it. It's definitely a seller's market, but you can see now we're very much in this sideways range. It's not like what we had earlier on in the year where the buyers very much dominated. We went through small patches like this where the sellers had a bit of a pullback, but then the buyers quickly came back, and there was many, buying domination days, I suppose you could call it. The sellers, yes, they're in control. It's in sellers territory, but you can see they have nowhere near the same sort of dominance. And most days we're seeing the buyers have a go at some stage. This candle here, it's finished green, mainly because we did have a strong push up with the buyers just in the last half an hour of the day, which you'll see in a sec. But still, the sellers were around, and at some stages the sellers did come in. So overall, approaching this day, my thought is sellers market, but you got to believe that you can really look at potentially the buyers or the sellers coming in at any stage. So with that in mind, like when the market starts pushing up like this, I'm careful to be aggressive with any sort of pullback trades, just because I know at some stage the sellers are going to come in. But then when I guess this, later on like this, where the buyers have a really strong go again, you can kind of start to disregard the data because it's evident that the buyers are coming in and having a red hot go. But early on, when there's buyers, you just got to be wary of them, considering it is a seller's market, even though we are getting both sides of the market in most cash market days. So start off the day, and you can see the 1 minute chart shows it quite well. We kind of didn't hit any power points, but we sort of bounced between power points. So you would have seen terminator trades, those ones we looked to take them before the power point, work quite well in this area here. Then come 10 o'clock, I guess they got a bit of a boost from the home sales, or that announcement there, and that pushed the market up. And from there, they really started to push up. This area here was quite messy, and I wasn't really interested in anything. Pretty much through the whole morning period and through lunch, you can see it's chopping around, and there's nothing really solid there at this stage here. But we started to see some sellers come in. The Russell showed it quite well, in the Nasdaq as well. They were starting to. No one was actually breaking these support levels really well, but they were certainly starting to look like they wanted to have a bit of a sell-off, and that maybe the buyers were losing some momentum. Then we got this bit of a shoulder formation here, and that's when the sellers really started to break down and have a go. And watching other markets, kind of the momentum of the overall markets as well, it's quite evident that these sellers were coming. From there, we had this bit of a retracement here, so you can see basically as the predictives crossed up here, it's picked the peak of that retracement, and then the market's gone again. But this area here, as far as selling from here, I was confident the sellers could come in again at some stage. But again, if you watch the other markets, the Russell and the Nasdaq, they weren't showing signs of at this stage of really pushing down solidly again. They were still trying to hold their upside, but something like the Dow Jones, the Nasdaq was pushing down towards the lows. Sorry, that's a bit confusing. What I'm saying there is the Nasdaq was pushing lower at this stage, but the Russell and the Dow Jones was sticking more to the upside. So it looked like the sellers were going to come in, but I wasn't confident either way of them really having a go until we started to break down here. When we started breaking this swing low here, all the other markets started doing the same thing, and quite often the other markets will go first, being smaller markets. So it kind of gives you an opportunity if you want to try and get into these breakout areas. The Russell and a few things like that was right down around this area here, just as the ES was only starting to break this swing low area. So you do get a little bit of time to get on. From there we pushed lower, and it looked like the market was having a bit of a sell-off. They pretty much got to their cash market lows, so you can see this is the previous cash market lows, and they didn't go any further. So that's a bit of a sign that these sellers aren't really powerful. To get some strong sellers here, but just not to go on with it. And then the buyers flip them around and start heading back up to the resistance areas here. Now this area here, there's a 5 minute sell. So there was some evidence to say this would work and not work. I wasn't over fussed with the area. You can see on the S, it's come back, and it has held resistance areas at about that 1368 level. But it was the only one that held. The Russell and the Nasdaq at this stage, and keep in mind the Nasdaq was selling off most of the day. The Nasdaq and the Russell was actually breaking higher than this previous little area here. So it was coming down, retracing, and coming in this area here. It wasn't holding and pushing higher. So that's giving you some quite some strong, I guess, information that this market is trying to head to the upside. So then this 5-minute sell came, and you can see it basically turned around the spot and then tried to push up. Again, in this buying area here, there was quite a bit of evidence that the buyers were coming. It formed another bit of a shoulder, and as the predictive crossed up, other markets all started to break as well. And from there, we had this really good push up from the buyers. So even though we're in a seller's market, like I said, the sellers weren't able to go on with it here, and the buyers have really taken back control right at the end of the day. So it'll be interesting to approach Wednesday with that kind of thinking in mind. To show you on the 1-minute chart, so here's this area we start off with. We bounced between basically power points. We've gone pushed up higher, and then that was kind of the end of that uptrend, and then we had this very sideways period all through the morning and lunchtime break. Then we started to look like they wanted to break down, so the market got some sellers, formed a bit of a shoulder, and then went again. Then this is this retracement area where again it's formed a shoulder or had a bit of a retracement and then had to go on the downside again, and this is where the sellers really started to gain some momentum and had an opportunity to go on with it. It wasn't the case. It's bounced back up, and then this is the area where the other markets, if you have a look at the other markets, started breaking up and pushing up through, if there were power points on those charts, they were pushing up through power points and giving some evidence that the buyers were coming in. And then this area here where the 5-minute sell came up, around here, it became quite evident that it wasn't going to work, and then from there the buyers really came in and had a strong push up towards the end of the day. So that's a wrap up for Tuesday, and we'll speak to you guys on Wednesday.